While the history of religions mentions the existence of tens of thousands of prophets who have come to the world, unfortunately, the number of prophets we have information about is very limited. Most of the information is transmitted from Israelite sources and is based on sources whose historical accuracy cannot be proven. With this limited knowledge of the history of religions, we've been trying to uncover some truths for thousands of years. Despite billions of dollars spent worldwide on all these researches, archaeological studies, and so-called religious institutions expected to tell us the truth, no one has provided us with information about the lost history of religions of the past by laying a stone upon a stone. However, there is a beautiful saying: two things cannot be hidden in this world: truths and lies. The event that proves this saying took place in 1946 and made a big splash in the study of the history of religions. A group of young shepherds grazing their flocks in Qumran showed us inscriptions of a prophet who had been elevated to the heavens, seen God and his angels there, and written down all the details. Who am I talking about? None other than Prophet Enoch, the seventh prophet of the seventh generation of the first human race, who was rewarded with immortality and taken from his roots and walked with God. Prophet Enoch described heavenly encounters and divine order in such detail that today we have a name for the beings he saw and lived with for a while: aliens. Two young shepherds from Bedouin tribes living in these rugged mountains begin throwing stones into small caves on the slopes of the surrounding mountains. Fortunately, due to the unnecessary actions of these kids, the most extraordinary discovery in the history of humanity and religions is about to be made. The boys, surprised after hearing the sound of breaking, immediately go to explore the cave. What they see is incredible. They find a storage room made up of large clay jars lined up side by side. They have broken one of these jars with the stone they threw. The parchments found inside the jar are taken to experts. Suddenly, the whole region is besieged by archaeologists, historians, and treasure hunters. As a result of the studies conducted, nearly 900 parchments have been found in 10 more caves in the region. Egyptians called him Thoth, Greeks Hermes, Romans Mercury, and in Islam, Idris. Prophet Enoch is otherwise known as Idris, which is actually more of an epithet than a name, carrying the meanings of advanced in science, scribe. For this reason, Prophet Enoch appears in Islamic literature both under the name Idris and under the name Khidr. The common point here is the meaning of being advanced in science and knowledge, because when we look at all cultures and myths, Enoch is always associated with science and occult knowledge. For example, in Egypt, Thoth is a great sage who keeps records, and it is believed that all kinds of knowledge spread from him to humanity. For the Greeks, Hermes is an intermediary who conveys knowledge from the gods to humans, and a sage who writes famous emerald tablets. So much so that it is believed that after the flood, humanity progressed in science again with his notes. In Islamic culture, Prophet Idris is mentioned as the first person interested in astronomy of his time. Again, it is said that Idris was not his real name, but he was given this name because he was very advanced in knowledge and science. Enoch, according to Israelite sources and his own texts, lived for 365 years. Moreover, if we go into detail, 65 years of this is narrated as a normal human, and 300 years are described as periods when he walked with God, beside him. So what happened next? He was raised to the heavenly realm where he would never taste death. In other words, he was really taken aboard a vehicle and transported. The book of Prophet Enoch begins with a great warning to people, a terrifying warning for the generations to come, the destruction of the world and everyone in it with waters. Remember, he is the grandfather of Prophet Noah, so we are talking about long years before the flood event occurred. One day in his youth, Enoch sees a terrifying vision, a vision where the heavens are split, the waters of the earth and the heavens merge, and the world is destroyed. Enoch, in fear, tells his vision to his father Jared. He says, "Son, warn the generations after you. This is a warning from God, news of what will happen." Years go by, Enoch grows up, and as he tells in his book, one day the angels come to open his eyes. This is the concept of the opening of the eye of the heart, or known as the third eye. And from that day on, Enoch's divine journey begins. During the era of Enoch, an important turning point occurs in the history of religions. Angels, described today by people who have not even read a couple of lines in the holy books as, "They have no free will, they only obey orders, they are created from light, they never do evil," begin to deviate from the path. When humanity was first created, God, that is, supernaturally gifted, divine ruler, appoints watcher angels to keep people under control and constantly monitor them, ordering these watcher angels to report to him continuously. Please notice that referring to God here, I am not specifically saying the Almighty Creator. Indeed, such a word does not appear in the Book of Enoch. These watcher angels monitor humans to ensure that they remain as they should be for years. Now, here's an interesting detail. Because this monitoring is actually done to prevent the progress of humans and to keep them obedient as they were created. In fact, in the book, God gets very angry just because humans took notes of the information given to them. He says men were not created for this. That is why, throughout the ages, especially in Israelite tradition, transmitting knowledge in writing to future generations has been considered shameful. The book continues to narrate the events as follows. Over time, these angels begin to find human women attractive. And Semyaza, one of the leaders of the group, calls a group of 200 angels and talks about their plans. He says, "I know that this behavior is a sin and forbidden. And I also know that one day I will be punished for it. But I will do it. I cannot force you, but those who join me must swear to keep this a secret." The angels swear their oaths, and the group begins to mate with the human women they have set their sights on. In some sources, this also includes kidnapping and rape. Children begin to be born from these relationships over the years, and creatures known in literature as Nephilim emerge. For those who ask, why does God not want humans to learn science, even though He created them? Let me remind you again. It is said that humans were created only to obey. For this reason, angels are appointed as guardians over us, and then some of these angels are destroyed with a flood because they taught us science and knowledge. In fact, in many parts of the book, those who learn such science are referred to as sinners, and it is added that God took pleasure in their destruction and shedding of blood. I don't think there are any believers left among you who believe that the being we are talking about is the Almighty Creator. Good, because when you continue to listen to the story from this perspective, things will fall into place. As I said, generations pass, and the children of humans and angels spread throughout the world. Now we need to look at the events a bit scientifically, because the book will begin to present increasingly scientific data and talk about things that could be considered science fiction. You know that it is impossible for any species to crossbreed if they are not from the same family, so a dolphin cannot mate with a horse. But believe it or not, creatures called angels can mate with humans, and they even have children. So, as I have been telling you for a long time, the beings you call angels are not creatures made of light, created only to obey commands, without free will. This has not only been mentioned in the Book of Enoch, but has appeared repeatedly in various other sources. In the Book of Enoch, it is mentioned that over time, this Nephilim lineage became corrupt, began to enslave and exploit humans, even recklessly consuming the resources of the world and oppressing and consuming all the animals created. And those days are known as chaos for humanity. Just like today, isn't it? Perhaps there is a deeper reason why we refer to the giant corporations that control and deplete resources as giants, titans. I suggest you think about it. After many long years of chaos and sins, Michael, one of God's chief angels, finally hears the prayers of humans on earth and ascends to report to God what has been happening. Upon this, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, the great angels we know, appear before God and ask him to judge the fallen angels and the humans who collaborated with them. Then God sends Uriel to Noah to instruct him about the coming flood. God orders Raphael to imprison Azazel, Gabriel to control the Nephilim, and Michael to capture the fallen angels. Of course, these events do not unfold as simply as God snapped his fingers and everything was solved. The assignment of these angels and the period until the flood took hundreds of years, and the event known as the War of the Gods mentioned in ancient Sumerian and Hindu texts occurred. In fact, during this period, Enoch, seeing the prediction of the coming flood and not wanting the human race to perish, was taken to the heavens by the angels repeatedly and met with God, as well as met with the fallen angels to convey mutual requests and attempt to establish peace. Look, these are not movie scripts. These are things written in a book, you know? Of course, I am simplifying and narrating them for you. In the Book of Enoch, these are described in more elaborate and divine terms. However, all this mediation is in vain, and ultimately the fallen angels and those who collaborated with them lose. Then the flood comes and disrupts the entire order, and an era comes to an end. Semyaza and Azazel, leaders among the fallen angels, are chained underground from eternity and imprisoned until the day of judgment. I mentioned earlier that Enoch ascends to and descends from the heavens in the book, but let's delve into that topic a bit more now, because the details provided there are both highly science-fictional and identical to events in which Prophet Muhammad, Moses, and Zulkarnain were involved. Muhammad's flying, light-emitting winged steed Barak, the bright cloud that took Moses to the heavens from Mount Sinai, the fiery chariot that took Zulkarnain beyond the layers of the sky, even the flying, fire-emitting chariot used by the Greek god Apollo while roaming the earth, and countless other examples. All the descriptions and depictions of individuals taken to the heavens throughout the ages seem the same, don't they? This is an aspect that requires utmost attention. Perhaps the person who narrated this event to us in the most detailed manner is none other than Prophet Enoch. According to the Book of Enoch, the vehicle with which the angels took him to the heavens looked like a bright cloud emitting light all around. When he entered it, he tells us that its walls and floors were made of transparent crystal. Look, there was no glass in the man's time, and he wrote these within the limits of his perception and technological knowledge. Enoch says that this vehicle carried him from the earth to the heavens, and later he came to a wall of burning flames, and the vehicle passed through it. He found himself suddenly in front of a giant house made of crystal stones, the house of God. He describes it as follows. The walls and floor of the house were like mosaic crystals. Its foundation was also crystal. Its ceiling was like shining stars, flashing lightning, and there were fiery cherubim among them. You know, the golden angel motifs on the lid of the Ark of the Covenant. Their function was to facilitate the transfer of energy from the Ark between their wings, creating a hologram or energy in the middle, representing the image of God. In other words, it was a technological device. Obviously, Enoch is trying to tell us that the palace's ceiling electricity or lighting technology was created in this way. And remember, the ancients always described what we now call electricity or energy as fire. Smokeless fire, bright fire, white fire. These are all symbolic expressions referring to this phenomenon. He then describes coming to a much larger crystal structure, with the floor and roof made of fire, entering an indescribably vast and magnificent area, and seeing God sitting there in all his glory. He is surrounded by thousands of angels protecting him. Look, the event has now turned into something straight out of Star Wars, and this is a prophet's book, remember. Moreover, it's the book of a very important prophet. Enoch conveys the proposals of the angels who are at war with God. But God says to Enoch, "Fear not, righteous Enoch, approach and hear my words. Say to them, why did you leave the high and infinite heavens and lay with women? Why did you defile yourselves with the daughters of men? Why did you mingle among mankind and build houses for yourselves? While living in the high, eternal life, why did you defile yourselves with the blood of women? Now, because of what you have done, they will also perish with you. In fact, God continues to curse for pages, but I cut it off because it really demeans humanity, and frankly, it bothers me. Later, Enoch is taken away from the presence by other angels and is put back into the vehicle to deliver the message to the fallen angels. During this time, he continues to talk about some extraordinary things he saw in that realm. For example, he describes a place where the inhabitants are beings of bright fire and have the ability to appear as humans if they wish. Finally, he says that they began to descend to the earth, inside and outside the structure, putting on the wings of thousands of angels, and initiated the war. Now let's take a moment to pause and breathe. I know, these are truly shocking details. Look, folks, sometimes in the comments people say to me, "You don't believe in God." Let me clarify, this is not a channel advocating atheism, and I am not an atheist myself. In fact, I consider myself quite religious, but what I believe in is the absolute creator. In other words, the one who makes everything happen when you say it, the being we carry the spirit of, who does not concern himself with the petty matters of humans, constantly saying, "I will hang you, cut you, burn you," not wanting us to fear him, but rather to love him. And I believe that, just like other philosophical belief systems also indicate, we cannot describe this entity with any word or description, because a being who created the whole universe and dimensions must be a being far beyond our perception, right? I'm sure many of you also imagine the creator like this. So, what's this then? The man is sitting on a celestial floor, on a throne, surrounded by armies, without the angels informing him. He has no idea what's happening on Earth for hundreds of years. He's been waging a war for centuries. He sees humans as extremely worthless and insignificant. He scolds his angels for defiling themselves with humans. He does not consider knowledge and science worthy for us. He just wants us to obey and not deviate from our purpose of creation. Look, it's like this in the Book of Enoch, in the Torah, in the Bible, in the Qumran, and all the holy books. In Egyptian texts, there are periods mentioned where the seasons shift and people see themselves as gods. If we consider that the gods were technological beings, we have also progressed significantly, and the seasons have really started to shift terribly. Who knows, maybe the time is approaching. In the book, our alien friends say that after this war, we will be wiped out, and a person called the Messiah will be brought to us, and he will rule over us. It will be years of peace, tranquility, abundance, and prosperity. So those who say, "Oh, our life is so boring," should be patient. It seems like soon we're all going to have a movie-like life. Thanks to the Qumran excavations, the most scientific section of the Book of Enoch has emerged, the Book of Astronomy. In this book, we encounter information about the movements of celestial objects in space. What makes it even more interesting is that these teachings were shown and taught to Enoch directly by the angel Uriel during his years spent in the heavens. In this book, there are things that remind me of black holes. Besides these, it provides detailed information about seasonal cycles and lunar cycles. This book has focused on Israelite history and has used heavy symbolism and allegory. While animals symbolize humans in the events described, humans symbolize angels. It has primarily become an allegorical section telling the story of the Israelites. Some historians say that this part was added by the Essenes. And of course, the pure book of thousands of years ago will not come down to us as it is. The books found in Qumran are ultimately updated versions of that ancient book for today. This information has been passed down through the ages by strict sects like the Essenes to prevent it from being forgotten. However, later on, the Essenes and their beliefs, seen as a threat to Christianity, came to an end with the destruction of the Essenes by the Romans. These texts in the Qumran scrolls are divided into 5 subsections. This subsection tells us the history of the world in 10 weeks. According to the book, 7 weeks have passed, and the remaining 3 weeks describe the present age and the future. The story reaches its climax on the 7th day of the 10 weeks and continues. A new heaven will be born, and after that there will be long weeks that will never end. Everything will be good and just. The book describes the calamities that will befall humanity, and how some chosen ones will live in the presence of God after the ultimate end. It's the classic heaven and hell story. Again, in this section, there is mention of bottomless dark pits where sinners will be cast. This subsection contains short admonitions given by Enoch to his son Methuselah. It discusses the wisdom of God, the rewarding of the just, and the punishment of the wicked. The section also talks about the fate after death and mentions 6 sages. Found in a considerably fragmented state, this section talks about the birth and appearance of Noah, reminiscent of an angel. It describes how, when Noah was born, his father immediately went to talk to his grandfather, Enoch, saying that his son had a radiant white and red skin with brightness coming from his eyes, and that he could speak. Even Noah's father, Lamech, says to his father Enoch, "This child resembles the children of angels more than humans. I think his father must be an angel." Notice how this description of a radiant speaking baby was later used by Christians for Jesus. This Rome. It stole everything it found and combined it in its own Jesus from all directions. It speaks of the descendants of light and the sinners condemned to darkness. Now let's examine the events a bit historically, logically, and scientifically. According to Sumerian belief, and subsequently in almost all Middle Eastern civilizations, our world has been visited by beings coming from the heavens many times. Those civilizations called these gods Anunnaki. In the books of Enoch, there is a striking similarity between the race referred to as Watchers and these Anunnaki. And just like in the Book of Enoch, according to Sumerian belief, these Anunnaki have eventually mingled with human women, giving rise to a real lineage. In history, many, including pharaohs, kings, and even today's British royalty, claim to descend from this lineage. Popular culture refers to these folks as the elite bloodline, the ruling class, and this group symbolizes itself as the combination of blue and red blood, supposedly the divine, or rather extraterrestrial blue lineage mingling with humans, the red blood. In short, these guys are openly saying, "We are of the Nephilim lineage." Even the blue-red colors on the British flag, the American flag, and even the prominent blue-red costumes of superheroes in comic books all refer to these nations and this divine lineage. Children growing up with images of superheroes like Superman, Spider-Man in these colors always associate these two colors with something reassuring, protective, and nurturing, and ultimately develop an unconscious sympathy towards countries like America, Britain. Look at what these people pay attention to in shaping and controlling society. Anyway, the story continues as follows. The Anunnaki are not satisfied with breeding among themselves and decide, at the command of Enki, to destroy humanity in the flood. Similarly, according to the ancient astronaut theory, a detailed race called the Anunnaki comes to Earth. Over time, the genetic structures of monkeys and aliens are modified to create humans to perform menial tasks for the aliens. The Anunnaki rule over these humans as god-kings. Over time, both the Anunnaki and humans multiply. Great civilizations and structures are built, such as pyramids, sphinxes. Then conflicts arise among the Anunnaki princes, conflicts between the human Anunnaki hybrid race called demigods, and a great war of the gods ensues, followed by the flood, which ends everything. After that, these beings announce that they leave the earth to humans only and withdraw behind the scenes. Or at least that's what we think, and thus, modern human history begins with the year 6000 BC as we know it. Think about it. According to mainstream history, humans were a type living in small settlements consisting of 4 or 5 straw houses before the Sumerians, and in a very short time, they present us with the Sumerian civilization, equipped with sewage infrastructure, irrigation systems, all kinds of laws, and executive organs. Frankly, this civilization leap and the development of humanity, in the way mainstream history insists on, doesn't seem logical to me. Especially when we start finding traces of civilizations even more advanced than the Sumerians, who lived before them. And I can't really say I believe in mainstream history. While nearly 90% of human history as we know it has either not been recorded or has been lost, expecting anyone, at least an intellectually curious person, to believe in the history told and imposed on them would be a mistake. So why did this book not come to light until 1946? Why were such crucial and, more importantly, belief-shaking pieces of information concealed? The answer lies within the question. Questioning. When a person begins to question anything, they take the first step towards the truth. Take, for example, a lesson from the history of religions. Abraham is born into a polytheistic environment, questions it, initially believes in the moon, then the sun, then the stars, analyzes them all, and finally forms his belief saying, there must be a being beyond all this to create the whole order. But ironically, the religions descended from him have prohibited questioning. For example, in Jewish belief, if you question religion, you are immediately declared an atheist. Similarly, in the Christian religion established by Rome, those who questioned were always killed by hanging or burning. In today's Islam, if you question why there are interesting contradictions in the Qumran, why one moment Allah is mentioned, then referred to as we, and then as He, you are immediately declared an infidel and punished, from insult to stoning to death, depending on where you live. In short, the current system does not allow you to progress on the path of truth. They just want you to live and die as they tell you. This is exactly what happened to the Book of Enoch. When ancient belief philosophies began to spread in the Roman Empire, Rome first thought it would silence them by force and punished Christians by burning them alive and throwing them to lions in the Colosseum. By the way, at that time, this group did not call themselves Christians. The term Christianity is a term coined by Rome, but the belief spread rapidly in the empire, and Rome, which was not already in its former glory, foresaw that it would be a problem and made the greatest strategic maneuver in history by changing the religion of the empire. Of course, this is not a cute spiritual leap, but a political move. By changing the religion and later establishing the papal system, that is, the Vatican, Rome has regained control of the rebellious people. For this reason, Rome begins to create the customs and symbols of its new religion. For this purpose, especially pagan holidays, symbols, and customs are taken, given Christian names like Easter, and invariably linked to Jesus, and then served to new Christians. For those who wonder how this didn't come to light, let me tell you what kind of empire Rome was. After making this symbolic transformation, Rome declared the pagan religion infidelity and killed all pagans. Yes, one of the greatest genocides in history is committed, and not only people but all literature is burned and destroyed. According to some, this chain of destruction is completed a year after the preparation of the Bible, with the burning of the Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest sources of human history. The same destruction that was done to pagans is done to the other books outside the Bible. Approximately, the formation of the Bible took 90 years and countless meetings. The Romans took parts that suited them from the thousands of ancient texts they examined, including the Book of Enoch, and added them to the Bible, declaring the ones that did not suit them as apocryphal or cursed, and burning and destroying them, which would lead the people to rebellion, disobedience, and freedom. It is said to be 30 books. If I were you, I would try to find and read these books somehow. After all, what the Vatican sees as a threat must be the truth. Based on what my grandfather told me, what could they have done to the Book of Enoch? Think about it. The Book of Enoch contained some Jewish touches at that time. You know the subsections of the book I mentioned? But despite this, Rome didn't leave it to chance and destroyed this book, which contained a being called God, who created humans and saw us as slaves. Instead, texts were preferred that portrayed a more gently firm image of God, who punishes us if we misbehave and rewards us if we behave. And humanity, by its own hand, is made a slave again using corrupt religions, just so that some can remain ruling class. The aim of the channel is to reflect and present the truths to you as much as possible. Some may find these heavy, may perceive them as insults, but as I said, I also believe in the absolute creator and am seeking him. But it seems that those who establish this system don't really want us to find or understand him. The purpose of the channel is not to criticize anyone's religion. I always say religion is a path, and an individual one at that. Whether you're Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, no one can criticize you. Of course, as long as you're not trying to impose your own path on others. We came into this world alone. We'll leave alone. The criticisms or exposures I make here are critiques of the false or corrupted religions established by people. Please don't take it personally. I hope that over time, all of us find what we're looking for on the path we're walking. Thank you all for watching the video. You can support me to grow the channel by liking and commenting on the videos. Thank you all for your support. See you in the next video. Take care.